Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Congressman Steve Cohen, tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Democrat Steve Cohen, who since 2006 has represented the 9th District in the U.S. House of Representatives. Thanks for being here again.
Nice to be here.
Along with Bill Dries, reporter with the Daily Memphian. I'll note up top, we're recording this Thursday morning, and so every day is a new day, so just know that. I'll try to remember to repeat that. We've reached out, or we will be reaching out to Congressman David Kustoff to get him on sometime in the next month or so. And we do have Justin Pearson, state rep, who has declared a challenge to Steve Cohen in next year's election. So just some housekeeping at the top. My first question for you, there's so many things we could talk about. We'll try to stay as local as possible, and there are a lot of things happening at the national level, obviously, that are affecting us locally. But I'll start with the federal intervention, the Memphis Safe Task Force, whatever you want to call it in terms of the surge of federal resources into Memphis. Has it been, in your estimation, a good thing for Memphis, a bad thing for Memphis, or is it some of both?
It's some of both. We unfortunately have a high crime rate, and it's been that people, contemporaries, are concerned about going downtown. Restaurants have closed, business is slower, and of course there's crime throughout Memphis. We are, I think, first or second in murders and first and second in violence. And crime's come down, and Paul Young and Chief Davis have done a good job with that, but it's still too high. So I think it may have helped some. They've arrested some folks that may be gang members. It's hard to know if they're gang members, just like it's hard to know if the people of the boats in Venezuela are really running drugs or not. You just have to accept what the government tells you, and then the government's not been real honest since they follow Trump a lot. And but I think it's bad in them taking immigrants, and I'm afraid part of bringing in the National Guard and bringing in ICE at the same time was to go after immigrants rather than crime. The federal government's priority is not crime. They're not concerned about us getting murdered, our car being hijacked, or carjacked, or any other thefts. They run ads on television that say, local policemen, are you not doing the job you wanted to do? Well, if you want to do the job you wanted to do, you can join ICE, and we'll give you a bonus of up to $50,000. We'll help pay off your college loan, and we'll give you really good pension benefits. Join ICE. ICE, the Homeland Security, is the largest federal law enforcement agency. So they're more interested in taking our policemen, where we're already short, away from us to ICE, which means they care more about deporting people who oftentimes are not the worst of the worst. Most of them are not the worst of the worst. They didn't commit murder, they didn't commit rape, or they didn't commit sexual predatory crimes with minors. They're people that work in nursing homes, work in child care centers, repair our roofs, cut down our trees, do landscape, do a lot of good work.
Well, we at Daily Memphian, we've struggled to get the numbers. The numbers have been inconsistent in terms of what is being released, so it's really difficult to tell what's going on. You, as a U.S. Congressman, do you have a crystal ball into what's really happening, particularly with ICE? Or is this your worry that you're expressing that this is happening, or do you have data that shows that they are taking people who are just going about their day and deporting them or detaining them?
Well, I went to Rotary yesterday, and the head of our local FBI was there. I think he's limited in what he can say. We have no more officers and maybe less officers in the FBI agents than Nashville has, yet we have more crime. So they're not putting agents where the crime is. They're going to give us more agents in the future, but probably not enough. I haven't gotten the figures. I read the papers. I get what you get.
Yeah.
But they are taking immigrants. They're talking about warrants that they have that are immigrant warrants, and they never say what the crime is they've committed. And most of the crime that they've committed is just being here.
Yeah.
And they're not bad people.
But they are here without documentation, right? They're not here. This is a much bigger question, but if somebody hasn't gone through the proper process, is it fair for the federal government to pick them up?
it's not wise of them to pick them up when they are contributing to our society. We need more workers, and many of them are asylum seekers. Some of them are legally employed, and if they spent more of their time going for the worst of the worst, that was the whole idea. Christine Ohm was saying, we're going to get all these murders. There was a woman murdered in North Carolina. There's a woman here, a man here, whatever. They could get more of those people that are threats to our safety if they concentrated on them rather than concentrating on the numbers, which is what they want.
Well, let me bring Bill in.
Congressman, what do you think of Mayor Young's strategy? I think we talked about this the day that it became known that the Guard would be deployed here. How do you think that's worked out?
Well, I think he did only thing he could do. The Guard was coming in. It was a decision Bill Lee made, and Bill Lee will do whatever Donald Trump wants him to do. And I think that Paul was right to know he couldn't stop it, and that if he could get them working with the police more and more, they'd be less likely to be working with ICE. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's a good strategy.
Right. So what do you think the end game is for this total state and federal presence? Because some people are saying, well, it should become permanent.
Well, Mr. Barker said it's going to go on for a while.
Mm.
And that they
That's the FBI director.
Yeah, he's going to go on for a while. FBI, DEA, and Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, ATF are here already. They'll have more people here. The more they take illegal firearms off the street, good. More they take drugs that are killing people, fentanyl particularly, good. The more that they help the police in cleaning up their backlog on warrants, and some of them may be gang members, some of them may be homicides, whatever they are, good. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the physical appearance of the National Guard in the city is bad for the city. We're a tourist city, and our tourism is down. And to have a city with National Guard on the streets is not a reason for people to want to come here.
We are about 2 days past elections in several cities, several states, in which Democrats did very well in that. Does that portend anything for the midterm elections next year?
I definitely think it does. Democrats did great even in Mississippi, where they no longer have a veto-proof majority. There were red states and blue states. The numbers were astronomical, much better numbers in getting Latino voters back to the Democratic column, getting young men back to the Democratic column. The country's fed up with Donald Trump. He's done every day is a new horror story, and there are different things that people are mad at him about. Taking SNAP payments away when he has the right to, and the authority, the requirement by law to use those funds that he has to pay people, give their SNAP benefits. Not doing it is cruel and inhuman. It's not Matthew. And Speaker Johnson said, "You want to know me? Read the Bible." The parts of the Bible I know, or most think about, is Matthew. He was naked and I clothed him. He was hungry and I fed him. He was sick and I cured him. We're taking health insurance away. We're taking food away. We're not doing any of that stuff.
Will there be, do you think, any move by the Congress? I think the Senate's where most of the action is on this whole shutdown thing. I mean, the House has already passed a bill, correct?
Right.
So it's up to the Senate. Do you think there will be a solution to that?
I think there will be. I think the Republicans are losing. The public holds the Republicans, who are in charge of the House, the Senate, and the White House, and the Supreme Court, to be honest, responsible. And that's part of the reason Trump said why they lost so badly on Tuesday. But that's part of the reason. Part of the reason is just Trump tearing down the East Wing without telling anybody about it, asking for $230 million from his Justice Department for the harm that he suffered when he was rightly being prosecuted for carrying out an insurrection against this country. Unlike anything in the history of this country, he tried to overthrow the government to stay in power. And he wants money for it, and he can get it, because the Supreme Court said he cannot be sued or held liable for anything he does in his official capacity. There was no basis for that decision except the king. And now that he can't be charged with bribery, he's selling pardons. The crypto guy says he didn't know him. Didn't know him. He knows him. He bought $2 billion of the crypto company that the Trumps have. They're making a fortune in crypto. 2 years ago, Trump said crypto's bad. It's for drug dealers and people to launder money. All of a sudden, he figured out a way to make money out of it, and crypto's wonderful. he has a very interesting way to determine what ethics are.
We're talking about the national elections a little bit, and it's striking that Democrats elected a Democratic Socialist as the mayor of New York, the biggest city in the country, a former CIA officer and colleague of yours in the House, who's now going to be governor of Virginia. And we have you sitting here. There are so many Democrats around the country who would never say what you just said about the federal intervention, right? It would be a universal, it is bad, they should not be here, we should be protesting in the streets. How from your seat, you've been in Congress now, coming up on 25 years?
No, coming up on, finished 19.
19, excuse me. I can't do math in my head without a calculator. How does that all work? That range of perspectives in the Democratic Party, is that a viable coalition that can move forward when there's those sort of different backgrounds and different perspectives?
I think that there are a lot of Democratic socialists who would say it's wrong. They want to be against anything to deal with police, and what ICE is doing is wrong. The National Guard's not right, and the idea of putting in more troops, which Trump has said, if I have to, I'll put more troops in, or different military, and we'll train them in the cities. That's wrong. But the federal law enforcement agencies are here. They put more people in to help us. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
If you think about it, that's the right answer for anybody. Anybody that doesn't take that answer, in my opinion, is just being knee-jerk. And there are a lot of knee-jerks out there.
Another thing that's come up in this election, I'm just curious your perspective on this, is gerrymandering. You know, your district is actually kind of somewhat, if you look at it on a map, it's not one of these U.S. Congress, districts,
Except
that squiggly line.
Except for the finger they put in my district.
Yes, yeah, the finger.
One appendage I could use.
What is the solution to, because I think most common sense people, they look at the maps and go, that is just bizarre. I'd rather just vote for somebody who represents my city, my town, my area, my county, whatever it is. Is there a solution to that you'd love to see Congress? It would have to happen at the federal level so all states are on a level playing field?
I've had a bill for over 10 years, and I've named it for John Tanner and Jim Cooper. John Tanner had it before me, and when Tanner left, I picked it up, as did Jim Cooper independently, and they both had it, which was that there be independent, nonpartisan, non-political commissions that would try to draw the districts contiguous and have natural borders and natural relationships with each other. And of course it hadn't gotten anywhere. It's kind of what some Democratic blue states have had. California has it, New York has it, others. Well, they still have it. It's just it's being held in abeyance
for a year.
Till 2030.
Yeah. So one more for me on these kinds of issues. I mean, some people look at U.S. Congress and they say, even they might love or not like what you do as a congressman, but 20 years is too long. We need term limits. Forget debating whether term limits is going to happen. If term limits, it's a hypothetical, was immediately put on the House and on the Senate, how would it change things?
It would make it worse. There'd be a less experienced legislative body. They'd be more dependent on lobbyist information and lobbyist influence because they wouldn't be as comfortable in their positions and their seats and their knowledge. And so the Congress wouldn't work as well. And there were certain things, certain times it takes longevity and putting your nose to the grindstone and moving it forward. If we had term limits in the state Senate where I served 24 years, we would not have had the lottery. The only day in history that we would have had the lottery in Tennessee is the day I put the lottery resolution up on the floor. We'd needed 2/3 of the Senate. I'd had other times I'd had 2/3 and the House didn't have 2/3, but I had 2/3 and thought and the House would have 2/3. I had two members come up to me, Doug Jackson and Rosalind Carita. They said, we can't vote on it today. We need to wait till Monday, which meant it wouldn't go through on that Friday because it'd be an intermittent Sunday. And the preachers and the people in the church would get on them. And I knew we'd be dead. And they said, we can't do it. We need to wait till Monday. And I got up and I said, the time is now.
Yeah.
And the time was now. We had the 22 votes, which was the minimum we needed, but what we needed. Not for that day, it wouldn't have happened. And after I left, some of the Democrats lost, some of the Republicans, it never would have happened. We wouldn't have had a lottery. We wouldn't have had $8 billion to help with education in this state. So term limits can be real, real bad.
Midway through the show here, I remind everyone we're taping this on Thursday morning, and again, just given everything going on in the news, a lot can change in just one day. And we have reached out to we will be, I should say, reaching out to Republican Congressman David Kustoff. And we have State Representative Justin Pearson coming on next week. But Bill.
And to that point, Congressman, Representative Pearson has announced that he will be challenging you in the primaries come next August. And you've welcomed him to the race. I think that's a term there, welcome him.
If it wasn't him, it'd be Corey Strong or Alexander Williams.
How do you regard him as a challenger? Because you started out, you had a large field when you won this seat in 2006. Nikki Tinker, who was one of your challengers, got a lot of attention within the Washington Beltway from Charlie Cook's report at the outset. How would you rank Representative Pearson as a challenger?
Well, first of all, I don't think there are such a thing as, in a way, challengers. My election, my re-election has always been on my record, the constituent services I provided in the district, the votes that I provided, the faith that people have in me doing the right vote, and the money that I brought home. I brought home more money than any congressman in the history of the 9th District by far. The $394 million that I got for the new bridge to go across the Mississippi River, the largest grant ever in the history of the state of Tennessee for an infrastructure project. That wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened but for my being there. The $30 million Choice Neighborhood grant I got for South City, or Foot Point at South City, 700 plus people living in what's a mixed use development, which has been praised nationally, wouldn't have happened. So I run on my record. People know my record. You go around the city, whether it's the Big River Crossing, which I got the money for with Charlie McVeigh, $15 million Choice Tiger grant, whether it's Collins Chapel for helping people who were homeless after being hospitalized and all, whether it's Habitat for Humanity, whether it's the Melrose reconstruction of the library into a mixed-use project, whether it's Levanter Hospital and getting ambulances to go up to Tipton County and bring people back and treat the kids when they're in the ambulance, whether it's CAPS that does work with people who've come out of prison and got drug problems, and people not in prison, but mostly ex-cons. Those are all projects that I brought home, and there are more of those projects. I mean, they go on and on. And so I run on my record, and the opponent's really not that important. Nikki Tinker got 21% of the vote when she ran one-on-one against me in 2008. Former Mayor Willie Harrington got 21% of the vote the next time. So the difference between Willie Harrington and Nikki Tinker was some, but the constant was me, and the relationship I had with my constituents and the record that I had and they knew about. We've still got that record. I think my best opponent was Ricky Wilkins. Mm-hmm. Ricky was talented, an accomplished lawyer, a respected lawyer. Randy Wade, who'd been my district manager, left me after he lost his sheriff's race and whatever, and he went to work for Ricky. And there was one other person that went to work for Ricky that used to be on my team. Ricky didn't win a precinct. So I run on my record.
And we should point out, we're talking about the primary here, the Democratic primary. Does the general election matter after such a contentious primary?
But it doesn't matter whatsoever as long as the district stays the same. Now, there's a possibility that the district will change. There was a Supreme Court hearing about 3 weeks ago concerning Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And all indications are that the Supreme Court will rule that Section 2 is invalid. Section 2 is what requires majority-minority districts when they can be made up. And if that happens, it depends on when they announce it. The thought was the opinion wouldn't come out, the ruling of the opinion, until June. But if Trump wants it, you know, Judge Sotomayor says he has a direct line to the Supreme Court, and I think he does. Each has a Coca-Cola can, and there's this long line. and so if he wants it, they'll get it earlier. And if they get it earlier, it could go into effect in this next election, and they could divide Shelby County, and like they did Davidson County, into 3 different districts that are monopolized by rural vote and more likely than not to be Republican.
Representative Pearson has said that it's time for you to call it a day. What do you say to that?
I appreciate my interns giving me advice on what I should do with my life, considering they've only lived 30 years.
Wasn't there a time, though, when people said the same thing to you when you were just starting?
I don't think that I should call it a day when I was 30.
No, I'm saying that when you first ran for the legislature.
Well, the truth is, When I first ran for the legislature I was 21 years old. I was a student at Vanderbilt University, and I campaigned on the weekends, and I ran against Donnelly Hill, who was a state representative. And I said that we needed more youthful voices in the state legislature because of all the Vietnam turmoil. And as I understand it, Curtis Person was friends with Donnelly. Donnelly was 34, and he was the old guy. And Donnelly Curtis told Donnelly he needed a truss.
Wow. Wow.
One issue that Representative Pearson has made a big issue as a state representative is XAI and the big data centers that are being built here, big power consumers. It's actually a national issue in Georgia. It was an obscure set of races about the Power Utility Board where Democrats took 2 seats. But a lot of that is about power, data centers, and all the controversies around that nationally. But it just simply put, is XAI and the data centers they have built, are they good things for Memphis?
We'll have to find out. There's not been a lot of testing of the atmosphere, and we need to see if they're putting more pollutants into the air that cause health damages to the people in southwest Tennessee, which is what my opponent says it does. Only figures I've seen, there was a study by the University of Memphis and University of Tennessee, and I think those studies said there was only 1% increase in pollutants, which is not significant enough to cause any change in health. Velsicol's been there for a long time. TVA's been there for a long time, burning coal. So there should be more research on the health effects on the people in those districts. As far as economically, they're going to pay a lot, maybe not as much as they should, but a lot in tax, millions and millions of dollars, which will help schools. We need help. We haven't had a lot of growth, and they're going to build this gray water plant, which, as I understand, will be the most modern and the best in the world.
Yeah.
And they do that, something we need. And my friend Ward Archer, and I think all of his friends at the aquifer think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Do you separate the politics of Elon Musk from the plants that are here in Memphis?
You have to. I mean, I'm not a fan of Elon Musk, and I'm not a fan of Teslas anymore.
We'll run through just a couple minutes left here and try to run through a few things. You talked about some of the federal money that you've brought home for projects. There are a couple of really big projects on the table in the county right now that people are talking about. One is the huge expansion of Regional 1 and kind of a new focus for them. The other is the possibility of a new jail for Shelby County. Democrats are out of power right now, so I don't know if it's even possible for you to bring home money for projects like that, or are those projects even on your radar as a candidate for federal help?
Well, the Regional 1 is, because when I was a county commissioner, I put together the 6 votes necessary to build what was then called the MED, and that was a major fight. It was a 6-5 vote on the county commission. I put together the votes to make that happen. It wouldn't have happened but for my efforts. They were about to cave and go with a plan that would have had the private hospitals get paid per patient and take the charity cases. We wouldn't have had the emergency room, et cetera, like we've had. So I care about that. That's one of my missions that I've always had, is healthcare first. Healthcare, education, then get people jobs. So it's on the table. We still will have, hopefully, community projects, which is where we get money. The kind of money we're going to need for the new hospital is probably beyond what you can reasonably expect to get in a community project, particularly in a Republican administration.
But if you could, you do support the project if you could bring.
There could be a Democratic administration, in which case we had a better chance. Yeah. Certainly support getting a new hospital.
And the jail, is that a candidate in any way?
The jail's not anything I've put a lot of time into.
A couple minutes left, Bill.
To go back to redistricting, in the last redistricting, you got about half of Tipton County, a majority Republican county, added to your district. If the Supreme Court rules, as you think they might, on the Voting Rights Act, do you expect to get more of that county?
I expect to get everything up to the Kentucky border. I think the district would be drawn, there'd be a district that kind of took in maybe downtown and North Memphis and goes all the way to the Kentucky border to the Mississippi River and over to the Tennessee River. I mean, a major rural influence. But there's a chance that they could be coming back more Democratic, because the whole country's coming back more Democratic. The southern district would come out through South Memphis, take in my opponent's house on Coral Lake, and go all the way out the south part of Shelby County into Hardeman, Fayette, probably McNairy and Hardin, and then maybe go up almost into Appalachia. And then Kustoff's district will probably be about what it is. It'll change some, but he'll be fine.
Redistricting is something the Tennessee legislature does. Do you think the legislature's Republican supermajorities might change as they did in Mississippi as a result of the midterm sentiment, let's say?
They might lose a seat or two. I don't think they'll lose much. I don't think they'll lose much. You know, rural West used to be Ned McWhorter, John Tanner,
Jimmy Nafee,
Craig Fitzhugh. Yeah, it's not the same anymore, and it's very difficult. They've left the Democratic fold. That used to be so much of Democratic hold and great Democratic leaders who gave, and John Wilder. And West Tennessee got a lot. Rural West Tennessee got a lot from the Democrats, but they have not had a Democratic leader. Roy Herron was there for a while.
We're out of time. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you, Bill. As I mentioned, we'll try to get Representative Kustoff, who was mentioned here, on the show in the coming weeks. We've got Justin Pearson coming next week. We also have Interim Superintendent Roderick Richmond coming on. And if you missed past episodes, we had Paul Young on. We had a number of county commissioners on talking about the Memphis Safe Task Force. All those are available at WKNO.org, YouTube, The Daily Memphian. You can also get them as podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.